Hello there, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome into the first edition of the Fall 2017 Flyer Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Mackowiak, the sports editor of the Flyer, and we'll be trying to do this every week to at least recap the weekend or any events the day after they occur. So this will be the first day and first podcast of this, recapping the weekend. Of course, men's soccer plays another match here this afternoon, coming up in just an hour from this being recorded at 2 p.m., but plenty of action going on the 8th and 9th, Friday and Saturday, that we can recap here today for you here on the Flyer website and in this podcast. Alongside me, I have Zach Gilland, typical voice here on the Flyer, who is a sports reporter, the main one, by my side, covering everything for the past year and bringing some analysis from this weekend. Say hi to the people, Zach.
It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon now, 1 o'clock on the Eastern Hour. We're happy to bring you some Seagulls sports, just recapping the weekend.
Great to have everyone listening, of course. This will be up shortly later in the day. But first off, let's take a look at the home sports this weekend. And Zach, it was only football and field hockey here at home. Let's start with football. You got to cover it for the Flyer out there. As a reporter, I was on the call on the Seagulls Sports Network doing play-by-play for the game. And all you can really say, it was a bit of a rout, 21-0. The Seagulls went up early in the game. They ended up winning 63-7.
Yeah, 63-7. I got the chance to talk to Coach Wood after the game, interview him, and he wasn't really happy with William and Patterson actually scoring 7 points, but he told me that he wanted the shutout, but he said they'll take it. They need to clean up some things defensively. Saw a bit of a blown coverage by a couple cornerbacks early in the first quarter yesterday, but after that they really picked things up. And how about the special teams with Blake Joppy returning the opening kickoff 57 yards, really getting the Seagulls in business, and a 67-yard punt return down to the 1-yard line. And Coach Wood, a big special teams guy, he told me that straightforward, and just the special teams really helping field position. We saw the field position really bite them last week against Albright State, so a really good thing for the Seagulls to continue going forward.
Yeah, the Seagulls, unfortunately, the first game of the season at Albright College up in Reading, Pennsylvania, going down 38-35 in overtime. 4 turnovers for the Seagulls in that game. Shored up things a bit in this game this weekend, but again, you have to take it with a grain of salt with William Patterson, a team 2-8 last season, and also trying out a new offense this year in the triple option. As you mentioned, Zach, Blake Joppy, 59-yard kickoff return, and also 3 punt returns, averaging 36 yards each one, and setting up Salisbury in great field position. Mainly the reason why they were able to go up 21-0. William Patterson got their one and only touchdown, and their only points so far this season in the first quarter. 7, they were shut out the rest of the game, and Salisbury just pounded the rock. Got some other players involved in there, which is good to see for the depth of the team. For those that weren't able to catch the game or some of this information, Harold Quagova was out for a violation of team rules, the starting inside linebacker. Also, Ryan Kolb. Estimations are he'll be out for the next few weeks with a hand injury, so we'll see how that affects the team. But one player that really stepped up, Mike Fowler, getting his first start for Salisbury, and 2 rushing touchdowns for him, including the first touchdown of the game, about a 30-yard rush to the right side.
Yeah, and Fowler looked really solid, and also Kadarius Campbell. Really, it's going into the game, you might have thought maybe it's difficult. Ryan Kolb means a lot to this program, but Fowler and Campbell combined for around 85 yards, 4 touchdowns. Really solid production. I think that goes to show just the depth that Salisbury has at the slot back position. And Salisbury, a lot of young talent in the slot back position, but it really showed it. A matchup against William and Patterson that on paper Salisbury looked like they were going to run away with, and they did, but William Patterson is no slouch, especially in conference play, but a really solid production offensively for Salisbury.
Yeah, the Seagulls now 1-1 on the season in football, 1-0 in the NJAC, looking to get their second title in 3 seasons after they won the NJAC in their first season in the conference in 2015. Looking at the rushing numbers, Malik Pratt led the way, 84 yards in the game, followed Superback, that is. Dondre Dennis, 62 yards rushing. Brandon Lewis, the quarterback for Salisbury, 3 for 5, 63 yards from the air. 1 touchdown, but also 1 interception. Had trouble reading the coverage on one with linebacker spy situation with Corey Anthony picking that up for William Patterson, and that actually led to their only touchdown in the game. So the main concern this for Salisbury so far, shoring up, as you mentioned, Zach, those fine details, but also just not giving up the ball, and that's been the big problem through 2 games so far this season. Not really fumbles the issue so far, through the William Patterson game, but the interceptions too. They have to be reading these coverages better, especially the triple option offense when you pass so rarely.
Yeah, and especially when you pass that ball, it's really important. We talked to Coach Wood. Me and Ricky Pollard of the Daily Times, we got a chance to talk to him after the game, and one of the things Coach said that they were trying to work on is limiting the turnovers. And unfortunately, Brandon Lewis, that interception that led to that William Patterson touchdown, their only score, they only had to go 26 yards. It was a really difficult read for him. Threw the ball into triple coverage off his back foot, kind of an off-balance throw. But other than that, 3 for 5, 63 yards and a touchdown. Really needs to work on that accuracy. That 35-yard touchdown pass to Brad Rose, completely underthrew the ball, but Brad Rose made a nice diving catch. But just maybe need to shore up a few things mechanically, read the coverage, and I'm sure Coach Fleetwood, Coach Wood are going to work with him with that and practice. But Coach Wood really impressed with Brandon Lewis throughout the season. That's his guy. Yeah. After the Albright loss, he reassured him and said, Lewis, you're my guy. So Coach is sticking with him and can really pay off. Really great runner, and I think this team can do pretty well with Lewis at quarterback.
Giving some love to the defense now, Zach Wolfrey, outside linebacker, and Patrick Bernardo, inside linebacker, tied for the team lead in the game with 6 tackles apiece. Wolfrey, 2.5 tackles for loss, getting to the backfield behind the triple option. One name we got to learn of, Zach, in the game was Xavier Harcum, someone that Coach is really high on, a young player. Had that 1 interception for Salisbury, also some big hits in the game.
Yeah, Salisbury is one of those teams that doesn't rely a huge amount on freshmen. You see a lot of seniors, juniors, sophomores get a lot of playing time, but how about Harcum in his first game at Seagull Stadium with an interception? But how about the defensive line, the front 7 for Salisbury? Only 2 tackles for loss against Albright. A really big push. Zach Wolfrey, 2.5 tackles for loss, 11 tackles for loss. No sacks, but William Patterson only threw the ball a few times. They're a running team, but Salisbury getting a really big push on the defensive line and a lot of 3-and-outs early on for William Patterson.
And with that, Salisbury, again, 1-1 on the season, will go at Kane and then at TCNJ the next 2 weeks. Then they have a bye week. Then they're finally back at home against CNU for homecoming weekend on the 7th. Moving over to field hockey, that was the big matchup in the lights this weekend. Number 1 Messiah coming to town after defeating Salisbury 3-2 during the regular season last year up in Pennsylvania. Salisbury coming in at number 3 in the nation. Younger squad, many people not knowing what would come out of the squad. We learned a lot about them in this game. They came in 2-0 after the Misericordia tournament opening weekend, where they won a combined aggregate 8-0 against King's College and Misericordia. Now coming to this one, fantastic start for the Seagulls. Things just didn't go their way in the end.
Yeah, we knew this was going to be a fantastic, a really close defensive-minded game, and that's exactly what it was. Messiah, the defending national champions, and these two teams developing sort of a rivalry. They faced each other in the 2005 and 2005 national championships, may even see each other in the postseason again, and credit to Messiah, they hung with it, outshot Salisbury 15-6, and it was a real back-and-forth matchup, both teams trading possession. Seems like one team would have the ball in the offensive zone for 5 minutes, and then the next team would get the ball there, but credit Messiah, they hung with it. A couple calls went Salisbury's way, or against Salisbury, and then Messiah able to dig deep and get that big goal in overtime.
Zach was on the call with Drew Williams on the Seagull Sports Network as color commentator, getting to watch the action there firsthand. Salisbury, great start to the game. That was the first time I got to watch them this season, and brilliant start for them. I was really impressed with the unknowns on the squad, how young some of these players are, and what they were able to put out onto the field. Really impressive stuff, even though they did lose in overtime. It was a tough one, but Messiah, deservingly number 1 team in the nation. Really the resiliency to come back in that game. Tressie Windsor, though, have to give her a shout out. Incredible game, getting the ball out of tough situations. 1 penalty shot was the difference that forced overtime. She had 8 saves, including some help from the post.
Yeah, that post certainly turned out to be Salisbury's best friend, but credit Windsor with 8 saves. She really had a tough matchup ahead of her. Carissa Gaiman, 28 goals last season, 3rd in the country, and credit the Salisbury defense really shutting down Gaiman. No assists, no goals. The only goals coming in off that penalty stroke and that goal in overtime. And that Salisbury back line really made it difficult for Messiah.
Yeah, for sure. And Messiah, of course, I'm sure we'll see them again down the line. These two teams will be in the NCAA tournament and definitely one to keep track of. But for Salisbury, it's not a bad loss. They shouldn't really go down at all in the rankings, maybe 4 or 5. Typical ranking systems, you have to go down at some length. But again, tough matchup, and one Salisbury should be really proud of. Coach Chamberlain, is going to be frustrated at times, but definitely a one she should be proud of, especially these young players that stepped up off the bench. Very impressive. Ariel Johnston may not show in the stat line, but a fantastic game by her in the defensive end.
Yeah, and she was super aggressive, and last season, or really taking over for that back defensive role. And Anna Brittingham lost from a season ago, graduated. We saw her a lot in the midfield game last year, a lot of lasers on the net, and she played a offensive defensive role, really aggressive on the defensive end, shoving some defenders around. Pretty chippy game, but we got the chance to talk to Coach Chamberlain after the game, and she really frustrated with the outcome of the game. Seemed a little deflated after the game, but she was so proud of the team that she had in front of her. A lot of young players, a lot of sophomores, a lot of players that didn't get a lot of playing time last year, and she credited them with that, sticking with the on a new level. She said not a lot of players have gotten a chance to play at that level, but a lot of freshmen and sophomores coming in. And how about Rachel DeMonico, CAC Player of the Week, Tara Daddio, we saw a lot from her, and Natalie Wilkinson, maybe the senior leader on that offensive side, get that really big goal 2 minutes before halftime. A really deflating loss, but it just goes to show you that Salisbury, even with that young team, can really hang with the best in the country.
Yeah, field hockey with their 2-1 record will host Washington College. Coming Wednesday night, 6 p.m. start in Siegel Stadium. Try to come out for that one. Otherwise, it will be on the Siegel Sports Network. Moving on, we'll take a look at men's soccer now. Once again, a 1-0 loss for men's soccer. 1-3 on the season now. All 4 games, 1-0 results, with their one win coming at Newman on Tuesday. This one, I lost to Bridgewater out of Virginia, and it was at the St. Mary's College of Maryland Seahawk Classic that Salisbury goes to. Faces the two outside of the CAC teams that come in to that classic. Bridgewater yesterday, and it will be Oglethorpe in just about 45 minutes down in St. Mary's City, Maryland. But for Salisbury, still another frustrating outing, and this is what it's been all season. They get so many shots and chances, 14 shots, 6 corner kicks. Bridgewater just 8 shots, 4 corner kicks, and Salisbury just cannot find that final finish. And it's that type of situation where you have that chemistry, you get to the box, and then they just cannot find that right touch. And there are a lot of shots, from what I've noticed through the first 2 broadcasts this season with SGSM, that they like to take the shots from the top of the box, and teams will just let you do that all day. But if you can't hit them, then there's no real point to it. Yellow card to Nick Carrington in the game. Other than that, not much to note. Juki, their new forward, 4 shots in the game. A litany of shots across the board. Hegovich getting 2 shots on goal out of his the 2 he took. But Bridgewater just needed that 1 goal. They got it and moved on from there. They got in the 27th minute of the action. And the Seagulls, just the frustrations continue. They just can't get on the board, and you hope at some point they will break through soon.
Yeah, and really one of the most difficult things in soccer is being able to finish. Salisbury lost a lot of forward depth from last season, so a lot of new players on this team trying to really build some chemistry toward one another. They've been able to make some consistent opportunities toward that box, but just not being able to finish. And as we see, only 1 goal. It's going to be difficult for Salisbury the rest of the season. We'll see if they sort of build that consistency up. And out of conference schedule not really working to Salisbury's favor, but it's going to really mean more when conference play looms soon.
Yeah, and you have to make the note that they are working in 16 new players to the roster as we move down through the season. But at some point, you have to put those growing pains aside and look at the results. They're 1-3 at this point, and it's a rough start after last season where they only had 7 wins and did not make the CAC tournament. Men's soccer will be on the road Wednesday at Washington College for the annual Derby at the Shore. 6 p.m. start up in Chestertown, Maryland. They'll be back at home on Saturday, though, when they host Misericordia again in the new Siegel Soccer Stadium. Beautiful venue. Come check it out if you haven't yet. Moving on to women's soccer now. Another tough weekend, Friday, Saturday, double tournament duty for the Seagulls when they went to the Schellenberger Classic down in Lynchburg, Virginia. They played the host team Friday, and in that game, a 1-0 win for the Hornets. On yesterday, they took on Roanoke, a 3-0 loss in just commanding fashion from the Maroons, of course. But out of all that, with no goals on the board, the one good thing coming out of Lynchburg, Ruthie Lucas getting the start on Saturday, and she's back, put up 5 shots on goal, and luckily for Salisbury, if there's anything out of this weekend, she's back, that engine behind the offense to distribute towards the top of the field, and now we can really see what this women's soccer team maybe is made of in 2017.
Yeah, Ruthie Lucas coming back is a really huge addition to this Salisbury lineup. Just nothing really going offensively, only 4 goals this season. Really big offensive outbursts in Washington College. A lot of young players, a Dana Gordon, a Carly Glassford, a Mackenzie Ryan, a Juliana Bowler, That name's a little... Baller trips me up a little bit.
It trips us all up.
As a Baltimore Ravens fan, I'm used to Kyle Bowler, but Baller, I apologize. But it's going to take a little bit for that offense to get a little rhythm, too. The defensive unit for Salisbury, very experienced, Ellen Rachel Anderson, and the Brady twins, but defense looked a little off against Roanoke. 3 goals allowed, the most in the season, but that William Smith matchup earlier this season, William Smith, top 4 team in the country, only allowed 1 goal, and the Washington College game seemed like Washington College were always trying to get that through ball through that back line, but Salisbury was always there to break up the play, so that new 3-5-2 had been working well until that Roanoke matchup, but the Schellenberger Classic, Lynchburg, Roanoke, 2 really strong teams in the ODAC, so a little bit of growing pains for Salisbury there, but they'll try to right the ship against Virginia Wesleyan.
Yeah, it was just a rough matchup against Lynchburg on Friday. Only 1 shot registered, and that was from Jamie Taka, not on goal. Just registered as a regular shot. Lynchburg outshot them 5-0 in the second half, so just a rough, more defensive matchup. For Salisbury, looking at Saturday, a bit deeper, much better on the offensive side of things. Salisbury registering 14 shots, 2 corner kicks. Really got things going on the offensive end, but we're not able to break through. 3 goals coming again for Roanoke. 2 before the 15th minute of the game, and then a third one to take those 3 points in the 60th minute. For women's soccer, they'll also play Wednesday the 13th, and they'll travel down to Virginia Wesleyan just outside Norfolk. 7 p.m. start for the team. On Saturday the 16th, women's soccer will host Catholic University of America at 1 p.m. alongside the men's soccer team in their game in the Siegel Soccer Stadium. Finally, let's move to volleyball. Zach, the opening weekend, got to take part in the broadcast on SGSN for women's volleyball and their annual Siegel Classic, and Salisbury going 3-1 in that tournament. They went 4-0 this weekend. A very good start, 7-1 overall at this point for women's volleyball. A lot of promise in a squad that many of us thought was really getting depleted of talent in this offseason, but they've really shined so far to start the season.
Yeah, great start, 7-1. As you said, that only loss coming to Stevenson. Stevenson, real thorn in the side for Salisbury. They lost to them 3-1 last season in, I think, Franklin and Marshall tournament in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But yeah, strong start for the Seagulls. We knew what the returning starters were capable of: Nicole Venturelli, and Alexis Howard, Rachel Dubbs, Haley Doherty, a real a fantastic defensive specialist toward the back. A lot of fantastic digs in that opening weekend, but we saw a lot of new players emerge. Not necessarily new players, but new into the starting roles. Gabby Fox, 7 kills in one of those matchups. I think it was against Stevenson, really coming on, and Carly Cleland and Alacy Swartout, the freshman. So really replacing that role of a Katie Stouffer, who over 4,000 kills in her career. Just wanted to see which players were going to come out and replace that production of her, and a really strong start. Coach Turco, congrats to him on 100 wins. Just really fantastic start for these Seagulls as they try to get into that upper echelon of the CAC, try to break through of a Mary Washington and a Christopher Newport.
Yeah, recap again. Straight sets in their first 3 matchups then when they were at Catholic, the host team of this weekend's tournament. 3-2 win and a tough, gritty win against a good Catholic women's volleyball squad. The Seagulls will, of course, be back in action Friday, Saturday. They'll be up in Aston, Pennsylvania at the Newman University Knights Invitational, the annual one, and they'll face Moravian, and then they'll be at the host team Newman, both of those Friday night matchups. And then on Saturday, they'll face Cabrini, nearby a school, part of the CSAC right now. And they'll also play a to-be-determined matchup, still finding out who that fourth team will be that they'll face coming up. Finally, also want to take a look at cross country, as the Don Cathcart Invitational will be coming on September 30th. They'll go at UMass Dartmouth Invitational at 10 a.m. on Saturday, and that will be a long road trip up to, of course, New England to take part in that one for the cross country squad that's been doing well so far this year. And their opening invitational last weekend really did nice finishes among some D1, D2 schools, finishing second place in both men's and women's as teams. Finally, here, as we recap the weekend, again, want to remind you, coming up at 2 p.m. will be men's soccer against Oglethorpe, again in St. Mary City, Maryland, as a neutral site. Again, want to go through with Zach some of our articles we put up. We've put up 17 to 18 articles since the start of this preseason. Very proud of that. As we continue to churn out content, always check every day. We're always posting new content articles about the players, the teams, and Salisbury University as a whole at www.thesuflyer.com. And, of course, head over to the sports tab. First off, Zach, you have your stadium recap up today, particularly since you're at both football and field hockey, talking about those, some quotes from players in there.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to you. You mentioned 15 to 20 articles that we've been able to pump out. Most of them haven't come from you, so credit to you to be able to pump those out left and right. But yeah, the stadium recap, talking about football and field hockey, a blowout and a nail biter. So if you missed anything here, be sure to read that recap. And the whole weekend recap besides this will be available online later tonight. And then little new thing we're tweaking with players to week, so we'll see which Seagulls shine this week, and a lot of upcoming stuff with print coming out soon.
Yeah, Zach will bring those players to week, kind of a new column he's going to start doing out of all the 5 Salisbury fall team sports overall, the top male athlete, top female athlete of the week, and we'll be releasing that later tonight or early tomorrow morning. As we scroll through the Flyer sports section here, one article I posted last week called North Country Hall of Fame Induction as a reminder that Berkman embraces his past. Check that out for sure. Brilliant article. If you are a men's lacrosse follower here at Salisbury, really interesting stuff into the mind of Jim Berkman. There's some things that have never been revealed, and I can guarantee that about Coach Berkman and his past, how his offense is influenced by another sport. And for those that don't know and new to Salisbury, he was the women's soccer head coach, led them to 2 CIC championships and over 100 wins in his women's soccer coaching career here at Salisbury, along with some basketball past experience. He uses his sports influences on the lacrosse field now as a coach, making plays, things like that, and also just his past, his coaching idols, things like that from his home region, which is the new Hall of Fame he'll be in. He's already in the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame, of course, but another one under his belt that now really reveals who the man is behind the coaching stature. From there, we also look at some weekend recap coverage from the opening weekend from Zach Gilliland. Also, as we keep scrolling through, women's soccer, field hockey, men's soccer, football, volleyball, all those previews up from the start of the season, maybe dated by about a week now, but still keeps the same information, what to watch for each squad as we head into 2017. Finally, our big story for the start of the season so far, focus on Shane Gaines. You may have seen it on Twitter going around or any social media. We've really been trying to promote it. It's called Salisbury Students Bleed Marine and Gold, but one football player wears purple too. Shane Gaines is the free safety now, his 3rd year as a starter for Salisbury University football team. Incredible story, and I'm entirely grateful for him for sharing it with the Flyer. Very intimate story about the Salisbury University football culture and family atmosphere under Coach Wood, and you don't really get that inside look that often, but this really details it, not just with Coach Wood, but other coaching staff members and how they embraced Shane Gaines both when he was looking for that quote-unquote home here to play collegiate football while also at the same time needing the support system during a family emergency back in January. And get one of his also got some quotes and some information from one of his best friends on the team, John Steele, another defensive back on the squad, and how he even was embraced by the team following an incident for him last November. So really an interesting story, pretty long one, but I can tell you I couldn't leave anything out, and it can be a tearjerker for some, an emotional story that if Shane Gaines does well this season, probably we'll be hearing a lot more about. So look for that. And as always, when he's on the field, watch for him. Great defensive back and one of the leaders of the defense for Salisbury. Any thoughts you wanted to give on that, Zach?
Yeah, it was a really fantastic read, and it really shows the brotherhood on this team, not only with Shane Gaines and John Steele, but also the coaches and how they really enjoy, or how they love their players, and also about football, how it can be a platform to really spread a message. And I thought it was a really great read.
Yeah, and big thank you to Zach for editing that and helping me get that out a week and a half ago about. So definitely check that one out. I have everything on here and share it. Tell us what you think about it on social media. We love to, help the view counts up and get the story out really in support of Shane Gaines and what's going on with his family right now. I'm wishing the best to Shane Gaines if he's listening out there. Of course, thank you all for listening to this. We're going to try to do this every weekend, just give a little bit more in-depth analysis maybe that we can't fit in our articles online and go through all the teams Sunday morning after their Friday, Saturday matchups. So always stay tuned to the sports category at thesuflyer.com. We have print coming out on Tuesday here across campus, and that will kind of be an accessory to our online content. Well, we will consistently put up stuff online in the sports section, but when we feel it necessary, as part of our 4 or 5 articles in print, we'll put our top stories from the last 2 weeks in there to really get them out there, get them to you guys as a new media. But stay tuned digitally. That's where most of our content will be coming from now on for the Flyer Sports. Alongside me, Zach Gillen, I'm Chris Mackowiak, sports editor of the Flyer. Thank you for listening. And as always, go Goals as we move into the week. Stay tuned for more content, some more ideas coming, and always trying to stay up to the top stories here in Salisbury University athletics. Have a great Sunday, everyone, and enjoy some football.